very good morning to one and all present here. This is Olu Boshak and I welcome you all to the Critical Thinking and Design Validation Workshop hosted by Institutions Innovation Council, Technomain Solid. In this journey of entrepreneurship and innovation, one of the main aspects of that involves critical thinking and getting ahead your ideas that are etched in paper. To ideate and turn them into reality is the penultimate goal of any entrepreneur. And to help us understand this aspect much better, we have with us a very special guest with us, Mr. Arijit Hazra. Mr. Hazra is the CEO of Think Again Labs, a Josh Talk speaker, and a Space Apps India lead at NASA Space Apps Challenge 2020. His motto: Dream, Dare, Learn, Do, Destination, Roadmap to Success. He has been associated with robotics and IoT technology and founded India's #1 Techno-Spiritual Research Institute here in Kolkata that is operating all over West Bengal now. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Arijit Hazra for this August presence. Welcome, sir.
What is critical thinking? Let's get into the topic of today's webinar. So, what is critical thinking? So, I'm just reading it out, then I will just let you understand what is the thing is. So, critical thinking is a method of analyzing ideas, concepts, or data collected to evaluate the situation from different perspectives and arrive at an unbiased optimum solution. So critical thinking is a very generalistic thinking principle that needs to be applied everywhere in your life every day. So the most need of the hour example of critical thinking to differentiate between a original news and a fake news, right? So we can only differentiate between a fake news and a original news if we are thinking critically. Because when we are thinking critically, we are taking facts, figures, different questions for a particular fact and coming up with the answers to come up with the results that whether this news is a fake news or a original news. Because why it's need of the hour? See, like if we eat every day, right? Now, if we eat junk food, what will happen? We will have a very severe illness, physical illness, right? So likewise, whenever we are scrolling through our mobiles or tabs or laptops and getting into the social media and all those places, we are eating information through our eyes, through our ears, and all those places, right? All the sensors, right? So in that regard, if if I give you any food, you are not going to eat. You will at least check whether it's a hygienic one or not, from where it's coming, what are the ingredients and all those kind of stuff. Because it's a physical thing and it will go into us, we know that it's physically happening, so we have to take care of it and we cannot eat any kind of food given by anybody. But the same thing is happening with information and we are not conscious about it because it's not a physical thing. We cannot see it that it's happening. But we are eating information day and night through the social medias. And if we are not critically thinking while we are eating those informations, we are going to be get severe ill throughout our mental space, right? So there are several news, several companies. So there is a thing called clickbait, right? So what is a clickbait? So people have this marketing, people have understood that how audiences, how you, the users, behave through the social media, and they create such lucrating headlines, lucrating images, some sexually attractive images and all this kind of stuff, so that you can click on that link, right? So they are playing with your mind because we guys are not thinking critically while going through the social media, and that's severely bad. It's rather bad from getting a unhygienic food, because unhygienic food will stay in your body for certain amount of hours, but unhygienic information is going to stay into your mind for longer period of time, and that is going to make a longer retained illness in your body. And we don't recognize it because we are very much stereotyped to speak about mental illness, that I am depressed, I am feeling very depressed, I am very confused. Because whenever we are thinking that we are talking about mental illness, people will say that we are mad and all those kind of stuff, but it's not true, right? In USA, in developed country, most of the people have a like we have general physician at our home, so they have general psychiatrist at their home, because the way we are living our lifestyle is deteriorating day by day, and that makes us mental ill. And if we are not taking care of that thing consciously, then it's a very big problem. So if we are having a big problem, we need to have somebody in our zone who can really help us to get out of that thing. But we Indians are very much stereotype about this, and we don't want to talk about the mental illness. So one thing that you can consult a psychiatrist. Another thing, if you are living your life consciously and doing critical thinking before reaching any conclusions every day, every event, then you don't need a psychiatrist, because you are filtering the information before that is getting registered in your brain, and that is highly needed at this point of time. Because you can see that people are calling themselves a news portal or something, but they don't even have a news office, and they're curating lucrative newses and all this kind of stuff, so that they can create a bad perceptions in your mind. And if you are not analyzing those facts, if you are not cross checking those facts before registering into your brain, you will develop a bad perceptions about somebody, something, some event, some country, and then that will be flowed through your network. And that's a world war, you can say. It's a mind world war that's happening around the globe, right? People are playing with your mind. So there is a thing called neuromarketing, right? So in case of neuromarketing, what we used to do, we used to understand the behavior, neurological behavior of our target audience, and create ads and marketing campaigns which can trigger their dopamine and their different kind of hormones through graphics, through headlines, so that they can click, they can buy, they can recommend, they can sign up, right? So if you are not conscious about these things, you are not living a life. We the marketers, we the entrepreneurs, we the business owners, we the political people are really controlling your life. So we know what thing you are going to buy, we know what web series you are going to watch, we know what thing you are going to sell. So we are actually controlling your life. You are not controlling your life because you are not consciously critical thinking of every facts you are registering in your brain. So this is a very important thing to understand, that critical thinking is a way of thinking which can help you to analyze facts, to come up with the answer that whether these facts are relevant, true, unbiased or not. And that's why critical thinking is very much needed for entrepreneurs, because you have to do this thing for each and everything, because you are managing so many people in your company, you are managing so many customers, everybody has their own physical space, mental space. So you have to understand them from the neuropsychological behavior, right? Otherwise you cannot control them, you cannot keep up with the company space, right? It will just broke down. So that is critical thinking, when we are having facts and we are using reasoning and logic to come up with whether the facts are relevant, whether the facts are related, whether it's true, unbiased or not, right? So that was in the definition. Next, it's a convergent thinking procedure. I have explained that stuff, why it's convergent. Last is, it requires you to use your ability to reason, right? It's not about believing or trusting. You have to reason. You have to ask the logic. You have to, suppose you are seeing that somebody, some very big personality has given a statement about certain thing, certain event. Now if you are a follower of that celebrity or that person, you inherently trust and believe that thing, and that is very much wrong. You have to understand what are the influences, what are the parameters, what are the purpose of giving that statement, whether that person is under certain influences of somebody, some event, some crisis, some necessities, or somebody is forcefully letting them give this thing, this statement or not. It's not an era of blind trusting somebody, something, or some country, or some anything. Don't blind trust anything. Even if you are getting taught something in your college, you are reading a book, cross check it with different authors, different blogs, different YouTube videos, because nobody is perfect and everybody is just putting their opinion onto you, but you are a single individual who have to create your own perceptions. Otherwise there is no meaning of education. So why we used to have education, why we need to go to college? Can anybody tell me what is the purpose of education?
To liberate ourselves
Liberate from what?
um, from superstitions.
Not only superstition. So we understand something is superstition after we come up with the original thing, but until and unless we know that that is a superstition, we cannot come out of it, right? So we the purpose of education is to come out of the belief system. All the information given to us from the schools to college to the university is creating a belief system around our mind, and the purpose of education is to come out of that belief system. Because if we take an example of Galileo Galilei, at that time the science, the scriptures, the ritual books, the pope, the all the religious body, all the scientific body was talking that the earth is standstill and the sun is revolving around it. So that was not a superstition, that was a belief system that was put on everybody through the religious and scientific systems, the education system, right? Now one person come out of the belief system that I have to check the facts, I have to come up with some results, some logics, that why the earth is stand still and sun is revolving. So I have to see it with my own eyes. Like Vivekananda have said that you have to trust only those things you can see with your own eyes. And that eye in the quotation is not the physical eyes. It's about your perception, right? The way you think. So you only believe those things that you think is true through this critical thinking process. It's not like your belief. So don't believe anything, ask questions, judge things, and come up with a analysis of the facts to register something before into your brain, right? So that's very much important. So you have to understand why we educate with a very simple questions. Can anybody tell me that after doing BA, MA, we have to do PhD. After doing BBA, MBA, we have to do PhD. After doing BTech, MTech, we have to do PhD, BSc, MSc, PhD. So after reading through all these different fields, why we are ending up in the same pond called PhD? Anybody have any idea why all we need to do PhD after getting a master's degree in any domain?
Because we have to write a thesis that actually markets our innovation.
I didn't hear you.
Because we have to write the thesis that actually markets our innovation, what we have contributed to the field.
Okay. Anybody else? So what is the full form of PhD?
I think we have to read about the philosophical part because philosophy is very superior to the other part.
Okay. Okay. So the Bengali meaning of so PhD means doctorate in philosophy, right? And philosophy comes in a subject of arts, right? So this is the biggest gimmick of all the education system, that philosophy is coming into the arts, but it's the biggest science. So we need to do the doctorate in philosophy. So what is the meaning of philosophy? So if we come up with the Bengali meaning of philosophy, that means darshan, that means seeing, that means observing, right? So after getting a master degree in any domain, we have to do the PhD, because when you are becoming master, people are authorizing you that we can trust on your observation, on your perceptions. Like this is a mobile phone, right? Now if I ask you what you can see, you will tell that it's a white mobile phone having a black screen. But if somebody asks me what I can see, I will say that it's a gray mobile phone with a camera and a touch lock, right? Keep the biometric sensor. So that the thing you're describing, that is your perception, the thing I am describing, that is my perception. Now when you are completing masters, the universities are authorizing you that we can trust on your perception. So give us certain perceptions on the domain you are working on. That's why we have to do PhD. So what is the purpose of education? Observing things, create your own perception, own point of view. And that can only be possible when you are critical thinking about your topics, your subjects, whatever you are learning, rather than believing and memorizing stuff for the examination. So you have to ask questions. If you are not coming up with the questions after learning something, you have not learned it so far. That is the purpose of education, right? Fine. And the last line, it is about to being an active learner rather than passive recipient of information. So the way we learn since colleges or universities, we are a passive learner. Somebody is teaching us something, we are just engulfing those information, memorizing the stuff, writing it down on the paper and giving the examination. So that is a passive learning process. So if you want to become an active learner, you have to create your own perception. So whenever you are reading a book, it's not the topic you are reading. You are reading a perception of an individual human being in this 7 billion people in this world, right? So you are reading only perception of one people, and that's not enough to get an idea about a topic to create your own perception. You have to read more and more books, more blogs, videos to understand the topic. Because if you are only reading from one book, you are creating a singular perception, and that is of another people. It's not your perception. So that's the reason we are lacking in critical thinking in your daily life, because we are not getting trained to critical think. And that's why this MHRD and all these governments are trying to organize this kind of webinar, so that you can understand where the lack is happening. Because it's not possible to change the whole education system in a night. So we have to change it bit by bit and individual by individual. So you are not bound to think in a way that I have to memorize the answer and write it down. You can critical think, come up with your own perception and write it down on the examination. And that's on an individual level, and that can be done over a night. But if we want to change the whole perception, that in the examination the predefined questions are not coming, so everybody will just got supply, because they are not used to do it in this way, right? So that's the problem. So we have to create the change in a bottom up approach rather than the top to down approach, right? So that's how you can change your way of learning, way of analyzing things. So what is not critical thinking? So whenever you are thinking about certain things without thinking about the consequences, it's called a not critical thinking. So you are not thinking in a critical way, right? So if you are just sitting on a branch of a tree and you are just cutting that branch and you will fall down, and you are not thinking about falling down before cutting that branch, so you are not critical thinking. You are not thinking about the consequences, and that happen each and every time. Like when we bunk classes, we don't bother about the attendance and what will be happen at the end of the semester. What we think that instantaneously we will going to have fun, we will going to movies. I'm not asking that bunking is bad or something like that. It's part of the thing. It's an enjoyment thing. But are we doing it in a way that we are thinking about the consequences? No. We are thinking about the consequences when we are facing it at the end of the semester, and that's not right. So if you're consciously bunking that I have to go for an internship and I have to learn something over there, or I am making a project, or I am too stressed and I have to go to a movie, and I will make up this absent somewhere else or some other day, that's okay. But if you are bunking classes out of nothing and you are not conscious about it, you are thinking about the end results, then you are a wrong way. Right? So you are not a critical thinker at the time. You are just cutting the branch where you are sitting. So that's where the problem is. So questions asked by a critical thinker. So these are not the list of questions, but some preferable question that you should ask. Like, what's happening? Gather the basic information and begin to think of a question. So whenever you are seeing something, don't come up with the judgment at the first. You have to gather the information, analyze those information, check the facts, then only you can come up. So what happens, I have seen many people, they just scroll through Facebook, read the headline of the news, and start commenting on some political parties, some particular agenda, some particular people. They don't even get into the news, read the whole news, and come up with the judgment because they don't have time for it. They just need to get the headlines and then start commenting, start sharing. And this is the reason why this fake news is growing day by day. We are not checking the facts before sharing a fake news, and we are becoming the agent of spreading fake news, but we don't know and we don't care about it because we don't know about different thinking procedures and how to apply them in our real life. And that's very, 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 very bad, very bad, because you never know, maybe one of your share is killing someone somewhere. This is that much bad, but we are not recognizing it. And this newspaper, this news media is using it day by day to provoke you, to share you. Like I just come through a headline few months back rather. So they have written that after a long time, the smoking of women is banned. That's it, nothing else. So what do you think? It's an Indian newspaper. It's a West Bengal newspaper. So you will obviously think that some political party in some part of India have done this thing. So I get into that stuff. So if they are saying that smoking is banned, that is okay. But if you are discriminating that women shouldn't smoke, so that is not reliable, or that is not something we are looking for, right? But we cannot discriminate people. So I get into the news and see that it happened 2 years back in Sri Lanka for certain amount of time, and they are reporting like that. And if you are not checking the facts and start sharing it, so it can become a viral thing, and they will get the money because that their post is getting viral. But you are spreading a fake news or a miscalculated information throughout the social media. You are becoming the agent of them free of cost, and you never know about it. So that's why critical thinking is very much important. Whenever you are dealing with informations, whenever you are dealing with facts, you have to check the facts before coming to the conclusion. And I have seen lack of critical thinking leads to breakups several times. What happens, I'm giving you an example, and I'm talking about this relationship breakup because you are in such an age that these things are very much relevant to you, and you can understand the stuff I am trying to tell you in this way, right? So suppose you are in a new relationship or a little bit old relationship, right? Now one of your friend, so-called friend, right? So we come up with various people in college life. Some of them are very good friends. They can die for you, they can do anything for you. And few friends are like snakes, right? It happens. Every people have this kind of people in their life. Now you never know which friend is real friend, which is a fake friend, right? Now suppose they are coming up with a picture that, see, your girlfriend is sitting with that boy in that particular park or something like that. So he is ditching you. You just do the breakup. Now you trust that friend, and you go and just make a fight with your girlfriend and break up. Maybe that picture is from 5 years back. Maybe that the picture is not real. Maybe that picture is of certain time that you know that they were together, right? But for emotion, so when we come up, when we are in an influence of anger, in emotion, depression, we cannot think critically. So whenever you are coming up with a judgment about somebody, something in your life, you have to first calm yourself down, do meditation, think 5 minutes alone, that what the consequences are going to be, and why this person is coming up with this information, whether they are really like me, whether they are really want my good, or they are trying to do something to break our relationship. Maybe your friend like your girlfriend or your boyfriend, maybe they're jealous of you. Maybe they're trying to break you up to patch him or her with someone else. So there can be different kind of stuff, right? Or it can also happen that they're really wanting your good, but you can only come up with the result when you think about the consequences, the facts, and all these kind of questions. Otherwise it's not possible, and it happens several times. And when you will really realize this thing, it's already too late to regret. So not only for doing entrepreneurship, reading subjects, learning certain things, sharing news on social media. This critical thinking is needed in every sphere of your life to maintain relationship, building friendship, maintaining a relationship with your teachers, professors, all the places. Because misleading facts can make your life a miserable place. So you have to be very, very, very much cautious about it, right? So I have just described all the things in a different way, so I'm not going through all the questions. So this is the last slide, I think. So for the critical thinking part, so universal intellectual standards. So what are the things that we look for while we are checking facts? One is clarity. Could you, so whenever somebody is telling you something, a headline of a news, so you have to ask, could you elaborate? Could you give an example? Could you illustrate what you mean? Accuracy. How do we check on that? So accuracy means, suppose somebody is saying that 60% engineers are unemployed. So you have to ask them, who gave you that statistics? How much accurate that statistics is? And why you are coming up with that statistics, right? So these kind of questions needs to be asked. Next is precision. Could you be more specific? Like someone is saying that I will help you to get more than 50 marks in an exam. So you have to be specific that if I am going to learn from you, how much more than 50 means there is a region of 50 to 100. Or if you are getting into a startup and the startup founder is saying you that I will pay you more than 5,000 rupees. How much, right? There should be a precision about the statement. Otherwise it's a vague statement, right? Next is relevance. So relevance, it's a very important point, that how much relevant the thing is. So I was giving an example of a news. So that is a irrelevant fact, because the time period is different, the country is different, the situation was different, right? So relevance is also a big matter to play in this particular context. And the depth, what factors makes the difficult problem? What are the some of the complexities of this question? What are some of the difficulties we need to deal with? So these are the parameters you need to check before coming up with a conclusion, and that's how you can do the critical thinking procedure, and it can be applied. So critical thinking, design thinking is nothing to do with science or entrepreneurship. The science and entrepreneurship is a place where you can apply this thinking process, but these thinking processes are generalistic to each and every thought process you are having in a day, in your life, whether it's a relationship, whether choosing a career, whether choosing a job, whether choosing a company, whether buying a mobile phone, whether buying a laptop, right? Whether buying a course. Like people write several things on the poster of selling courses, and many people told me that so we have a edtech sector in thinking and lab. So we are not an institute, not a training institute, it's a research company, but we are having a edtech sector where we teach projects, and we just develop skills of people so that they can become plug and play in the industry, and AI, robotics, artificial intelligence, data science, IT, and all those kind of things, right? So many people come to me, sir, whatever you are teaching, somebody else is also teaching it. You are charging 5,000, 7,000 rupees. They are charging 99 rupees. So I just ask them one thing, that please join there and check the facts, that whether they are providing whatever they are promising or not. Then come to me. If they are providing all the things that we are providing, I will give you 5,000 rupees or 7,000 rupees, whatever the course fees is, because it's a clickbait. I know they don't have those experienced professionals. They are using some teachers who is teaching for last 30 years the same thing, and they cannot give you the industrial exposure, what is happening in the industry. We can give, because the teacher we are employing, they're not teacher, they are engineers and mentors who are working in industry, building robots, IoT systems, web apps, mobile apps, and they are going to teach you how to work on the industrial projects. So there is a difference. So these are the things that where you check the relevance. So it's not always about the money, it's not always about the information, not always about the content they have created, it's about the delivery, right? So this is an example I'm trying to give you about the critical thinking process. So this is more or less about the critical thinking. So I don't know how much time we have. Can anybody tell me, or it's done? Because I have left the whole design thinking part, because these are very big things and it cannot be done in 1 hour. Anybody is there who can tell me?
Yes, sir. If you like to continue, you can continue. We have time.
What about the other people? Are they getting bored? Or they're getting interested? So I want to get a hands up from everybody if they want to move forward with the design thinking, because I don't want to bore anybody.
Yes, yes, please
No, you can
continue.
move
Please
forward.
continue.
Yes, sir, please
Please
continue.
continue. Please continue.
Okay, okay, great, great.
So please continue.
So this is mostly the critical thinking. Any questions from this part?
No, no.
Okay, great. So I'm just moving towards the design thinking part. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You can see the presentation, design thinking.
Yes, sir.
So before getting into design thinking, we have to understand one thing that is called catch 22. Have you heard of this term?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So catch 22 is a phrase. It's a paradoxical situation we cannot escape because of contradictory rules. So it's a paradoxical situation, hypothetical situation, which cannot be because of contradictory rules. Can you give me any example of that particular stuff?
So like grandfather paradox.
Grandfather paradox is something with time dilation, right? So
Yes.
here it's not time dilation, it's something. So that's another favorite topic of mine, that is space science and all those kind of stuff that I'm working on right now. But this is not about design thinking. So
Uh,
yeah.
One another thing was that Achilles board, like if one is starting to replace every part of board with the same ingredient, will that board be new or that will be that old one?
Uh, these are paradox. These are example of paradox, but these are not catch 22, right? So I am
Okay,
giving
sir.
the simplest example that you can understand how these are different. So suppose you are a fresher, you are going for a job interview, right? Now the employer is saying you that I will give you the job when you will have an experience. Now you can get the experience if you get the job. So it's a contradictory statement, that you can get the experience if you get the job, and you can get the job if you get the experience. So these are contradictory facts that is becoming like a deadlock. You cannot move forward from there. So this is called catch 22 phrase, right?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So what is catch 22 of innovation? It's absolutely same. Paradoxical situation that kills innovation because of contradictory rules. So I am giving you an example of that particular thing, that what is catch 22 of innovation. So suppose you are approaching an investor, right? And the investor is saying you that if you build 100 products, I will give you investment. Now you need the investment to build 100 products. So your innovation is getting stuck in a deadlock because of these contradictory rules, that you will get the investment when you build 100 products and you need the investment for building the 100 products. So these are contradictory rules that's halting the process, right?
No, no.
So let's get into the so this catch 22 is the inspiration of coming up with design thinking, right? So the history of design thinking, David Kelly is considered the implementing father of design thinking. So David Kelly is the founder of a company called IDEO, right? So IDEO is the first company who used this design thinking methodology and terminology to design stuff, right? And later on, he become the dean of Stanford Design School, right? So I first of all, I told you that design thinking came from designs, but it is not limited to designs itself, right? And design thinking is especially for entrepreneurs and innovators. It's very much needed. Without design thinking, you cannot move forward with product development. So design thinking and how this design thinking and critical thinking is needed. So in every step of design thinking, you have to do critical thinking, right? So that's how these are related. So critical thinking is, you have to apply critical thinking principle. So there are 5 steps of design thinking. So every step you have to apply critical thinking before come up with the results, right? So that's how they are related. So what is design thinking? Methodology for creative and practical wicked problem solving. So if we can solve a problem in a linear way, step by step procedure, we don't need to implement design thinking. So let's take an example. Suppose you are a company, 10 years old company. So you have a product line who is building a product. So there is a step 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how the product is getting built. So you don't need to implement design thinking over there, right? But if you are coming up with a new product, at that moment you need design thinking, because it's a wicked problem. Wicked problem means the problem which is not linear problem, which is very complex problem, which is don't come up in steps, right? So where you need to put critical thinking, creative thinking all together. So there we need to implement the design thinking principle, right? And what is design thinking? It's absolutely, so I have already told you that it's a divergent kind of thinking procedure where you are having an idea of a product and you have to come up with different options, test them and come up with the optimum option, right? So that's what written in the second point, they create options and test them, right? FAQs before design thinking. So so that I have told you before, that we have to understand where we have to use which kind of thinking principles. It's not about that we can implement design thinking everywhere and we can become a super thinker. It's not like that. So there is a saying in Bengali, I don't know how many people know Bengali over here. Musha marte kaman daga. It means we shouldn't use a cannon to kill a mosquito, right? So it's about the problem severity, complexity, that which kind of thinking principle we are going to use. So if the problem, so we have to ask certain things, certain questions before really implementing design thinking principle in that particular problem statement. First is focused on human values. So design thinking is all about those problems where you are looking for something which has relation with human values, because design thinking is all about users, all about the end user, human psychology and all those kind of stuff, right? So if a problem statement is involving with human users and all those kind of stuff, then only we have design thinking, right? So we need design thinking for product development, because who is going to use the product? Robots are not going to use the product, humans are going to use the product. So that's why design thinking is needed for product development, and in later on slides you will understand how it's important. Weak means complex, has high level of uncertainty. So high level of uncertainty because you are doing something new, you don't know the outputs, you don't know the options, which options is going to work or not. So that's why I have told you. So if it's a previous product line which is already deciphered, you already have certain results and all those kind of stuff, you don't need to use design thinking over there. But if you're creating new product line, if you're innovating with your product line, then you have to invert design thinking, because the results are uncertain, you don't know the results, right? Next is has no data. Has no data because it's a new thing, you have not done it before. That's why you are implementing design thinking. Otherwise we can use a linear thinking, sequential thinking, create a critical thinking and all those kind of stuff individually and do the problem solving. And there's a graph in this presentation. So feasibility, desirability and viability. So feasibility means whether it's feasible, whether we can make it or not. So we can think of anything, but when we come to implementation, there are several barriers: technology barrier, time barrier, this, that, all those things, right? So we have to think that whatever thinking we are having, whatever implementation we are having, whether it's feasible or not. Second, desirability, whether people are desiring the things or not. Because if you're making a product, you have to make the product for the user, not for you. So whether it's a best product in this world or not, if the users are not asking and they don't have desire for the product, you cannot sell that product, right? Next is viability. So If you are building a product that people can afford with 100 rupees and it cost you 500 rupees to build it, so it's not viable to build. Maybe it's a good solution, but it's not viable because people cannot afford it, right? So we have to, so innovation comes in this intersection point when a particular solution is feasible, desirable, and viable, both the three things. Otherwise, it's not a proper innovation. So different part of design thinking. So we have 5 parts, 5 steps of design thinking that start with empathize, next define, next ideate, next prototype, last one is test. So what is empathize? Anybody know what is empathize? It's nothing to related with technology or something like that. You have heard of this term many times, empathize.
Thinking from different people's perspective.
Exactly, feeling their pain, understanding from, understand what people want. Exactly. So empathize means you are becoming a user. You are feeling their pain and building the solutions, because we entrepreneurs never build products, we build solutions, right? So if we want to build the solutions, we have to feel the pain of the problem, and we can feel the pain of the problem if we empathize with the users who are facing the problem. Because in most of the time you are solving problems faced by other people, not you. So you don't know the pain. So if you are not empathetic to the users, you can never create the solutions that will be the optimum one, because you never know the pain, right? So that's why empathizing is very much important, and it's the first and most important part of design thinking. Without empathize, design thinking cannot be possible, because design thinking is all about building solutions for the users. And if you're not empathizing, the user is not there, you are only creating a solution, you are not remembering the user, right? So I will define all the stages. So this is the thing, it's not always about developing a new product, it's about developing a new user experience. So many entrepreneurs, many people who don't understand design thinking in depth, they understand that design thinking is all about creating a new product. But it's, yeah, we have to implement design thinking for creating a new product, but it's not the same case for every time. Even if we are having an app and that is running for last 3 years, still we can use design thinking to introduce a new feature, new user experience. Or if you are building certain mobile phone, so we can add a new feature, new gesture, new shape, and all those kind of stuff through design thinking to increase the user experience. Because design thinking is all revolves around user. It's not about you, right? So the whole thing is around user. Need of empathy in design thinking. So why we need empathy? So empathy was the first step of design thinking. So why we need empathy? The first one, to know what the target group really wants. So as because the problem we are solving, it's not faced by us in most of the time. So we need to understand what the target group, what the people who are facing the problem is wanting, what kind of solution they're looking for. It's not about what I can do, it's about what they want and I have to do, right? The next is problem to solve a reality or problem that I have told you that we don't solve our own problem. Why? Because suppose I am facing a problem by my own and I am building a solution, right? Who will buy that solution? If we don't do a market research, it can happen that I am facing a problem and millions of people are facing the same problem. We can solve it because there is a target market. But if a problem is only faced by me and I am trying to solve that problem, then I cannot make a product out of it. It's a solution that will help my life make better. But that's not a product, because we cannot sell it to million people. We cannot make a product for 10 people, and that's a very non-viable way of doing solutions and making products, right? Next, to remove filters from our head. So what filters? So what happens when you look at a problem? We are looking at the problem from our own perspective, and that creates certain filters, that this problem is this, that, so I create these options, this particular solutions. But it don't really happens, because maybe the problem is seen from other perspective, from the user's end. So you have to walk to the user end and see the problem from there, that the problem is looking like this from these people's end, and if I want to sell the solution to them, I have to create a solution which will be the solution of this perspective, not my perspective, right? Next is define. So to understand what is the need of define? To understand our target group, define or redefine the problem. Example of Parker pens. So I will give an example of Parker pens. That's why I just read it out and didn't explain that stuff. So to understand our target group. So after empathize, we know the problem statement. What is the problem statements are. Now we have to define the problem statement, because what happens? Suppose somebody is coming to a doctor, right? They don't come and say that I have a stone in my appendix or gallbladder or something like that. They say that, sir, I have a terrible pain in my belly or stomach, right? So that is not the problem. So the doctor needs to define the problem, that he is having a stomach pain because of a stone in her or his gallbladder, right? So that's how we need to define the problem, because in most of the cases, users don't know what is the cause of the problem. They are telling you the results, the consequences, the pains they are having, but that's not the problem statement. So we have to define and redefine the stuff to come up with the problem statement, the real problem statement, right? So let's take an example of the Parker pens, what happened to them. So the Parker is a very expensive pen brand, right? Everybody has seen or used Parker in their life sometimes as a gift, right? So when the Parker came into the market with a new pen, which is heavily costly pen, so they are not getting proper sales. So they hired a marketing firm, that we are not getting a proper sales. So this is the problem statement Parker pens have derived, that we are not having a proper sales. So after few months of analysis, that marketing people asked the officials of Parker pen to come to their office. They went there, and there is a conference room. They are sitting, all of them. So they asked one thing, that is your pen is better than all the other cheap pens in the market? Parker pens people said, no, it's not. It's right same. It has any other value that other people's are not having from their pens? It's right for more time or anything like that, or it's a golden ink, or what? How much your pen is different? So they say it's a expensive thing. It don't has any difference or something like that. So the marketing people redefine that problem statement, that you are not having a problem with the sales. You are having the problem with the placement of Parker pens, because you are placing the pens in a pen shop, and people are going to pen shop to buy pens. You have to put the Parker pens in a gift shop, because when people go to a gift shop, they try to buy expensive pens because it's a gift. So after that, Parker pens see a 80% growth in sales after this statement. So this is the way we have to define and redefine the problem statements of our clients, right? Next is ideate. So need of ideate in design thinking. So ideate means now we have the problem statement defined. Now we have to come up with different solutions, because it's not a predefined problem. So we have to go with a trial and error method and come up with the optimum solutions. So we have to create different options and test them and come up with the results. And from that analysis, we have to come with the optimum result. So that is the ideate stage. So in ideate stage, what we are doing, we are coming up with different possible options of the solutions of the problem we have defined on the second stage. Next is to go beyond rational thinking. So rational thinking means step 1, step 2, step 3. But when we are design thinking, it's a divergent way of thinking, creating different possibilities and options, right? So that is irrational thinking. We are not thinking in step 1, step 2, step 3, because it's not predefined. So that's why ideate stage will help us to get out of rational thinking, right? Rules for ideation. So what the problem for entry-level entrepreneurs they're having, they are thinking that we will get a funding, then we will build the app, then we will hire people to make the app and all this kind of stuff, or the product or something like that. That's not the way. Ideate, doesn't mean. So design thinking is not a way of developing products throughout, right? We have to develop the prototypes, 5, 6, 7 prototypes and test them. These options are prototypes, right? Now if you are telling me that I will build a app, I will build a app that will do this thing, I cannot trust you, I cannot believe you, because you are saying something. I can say I will go to the moon, but where's the implementations? Now you'll say me that, sir, if I don't have money, how I implement the stuff? You can draw things, you can 3D draw things, you can have a friend who can create a mock-up of the app or the product you want to build. You can just cut out cardboards and make the different screens of the products and show to the investor or show to the people in a competition that I want to make this kind of app, it will look like this, and we don't have the money to create the whole app, so we have created the mock-up. And in that way it's easier to get co-founders and teammates, because when you are telling 4 people that I want to build this app having these features, they will understand the things from their perspective, because you are only telling something, you are not showing them. But when you are showing them the app or the products you want to build in an image or 3D drawing or animation, they all are on the same platform, because they are seeing the same thing and they will perceive the same thing. So that's why rules for ideation is, don't write, visualizing whatever from form you want. So when you are doing ideation, sit down with a pen and paper. Don't write the text that this line, this line, this line, not like that. Draw something. You don't need to be a Leonardo da Vinci for doing that stuff, right? You can use a pen and paper, a scale and a pen to create the mock-up of a website, of a app, of a robot, whatever the thing is. But always try to visualize, create mock-ups with cardboards. So whatever form you want to do it, but do it in a visualization format rather than text format, because text is something that is very much boring and very much confusing, because you are writing something that you can visualize, but who else are reading it, they will visualize in different manner, and that's not right? Next is, do whatever action you want to do, but never stand still while ideating. Can anyone tell me why we shouldn't sit and think or ideate?
because
Because if
whenever
we,
we
Sorry.
because whenever we stand still or sit still, there are a lot of stuff start going in our minds. So that's why we can't.
Why?
sir, if
Stand
we
still or
stand
sit still?
and if we sit and stand still, then we will get a tendency to procrastinate.
Why? These are the results. These are the results. What is the reason that if we stand still, we cannot innovate, we cannot design something great or something like that? Why we procrastinate? Why? What is the reason?
Suppose I am thinking something, then after some time I am started to think another thing or another upgradation. Then I am started to think another something like we are diversing the thought process like that.
Exactly. You are right. But what I'm saying, that why it's happening? What happens when we walk or when we run or something like that? What happens in our body? So for others,
We can see
you
the
have to
outside
understand it
world.
from the physiological perspective, biological perspective. Yeah.
Whenever we walk, there is a flow of blood in our brain, and that
Exactly. And flow of blood means what is reaching our brain?
information.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Exactly. So you have to understand that our body is a biological container of chemicals, and whatever happening, whatever you are thinking, whatever is happening, that's a biochemical phenomena, right? So you have to understand this thing, that our thinking is absolutely controlled by the uses of the oxygen, the availability of the oxygen in our brain, right? So if you are stand still somewhere, or you're just sitting over there, proper amount of oxygen is not going to your brain, and you are hallucinating thing, procrastinating thing. But if you are walking, you are having a upper flow of oxygen, upper flow of blood in your brain, and that is reaching with the oxygen needed to think concentratedly in a particular thing. And you can think in a very concentrated way about certain things. That's why if you see the office of Google, Apple, Microsoft, these bigger companies, they don't have cubicles, because the companies, this TCS, CTS, and all these companies where you see they have cubicles, because they don't want you to be a creative one. They don't want you to ideate, right? That's why your job sucks at those companies. You are getting depressed. The happy index of Bangalore is so low, and all those kind of places. But if you go to Facebook office, Google office, they have some different kind of office architecture, right? There is several places wherever you can go and sit, wherever you can have chit chats and all those kind of stuff. So that's how these things are happening, right? So whenever you are trying to ideate something, even if you cannot run, just walk through. Like it's my habit right now. It's become a habit. Whenever I talk over a phone, I keep walking. I cannot talk over a phone sitting somewhere, right? That don't happen with me. I cannot talk. I cannot talk. Yeah, I tried, but it don't happens. But whenever I am walking and talking, different ideas come to my brain, and I can speak like a very so. This is a pathetic torture for me to speak in a way, because if anybody from you have seen my offline workshops or seminars or my speaking engagements, I used to use a whole floor. So there is a equation called 70-30. So you have to use minimum of 70% the walking floor given for the presentation to make your presentation look energetic and feel everybody inspired by you. But I use 100%, because that's how I can speak. That's how I feel very good to speak, right? That helps me to get more oxygen in my brain. So that is the reason that you need to walk or do anything, body movement, while you are ideating, right? So that's very much needed. Next is need of prototyping design thinking. So what is a prototype? What is a prototype? Any idea?
So suppose we have a business plan, then what the first stage of product we will develop is called the prototype.
So prototype is something which is not having all the features of the product. It's having only the optimum features of the product to see how the user is interacting with the product, right? And why we need a prototyping phase? Because physical form of solution, user language, we all understand. So if you are giving them a physical form of, maybe it's not having 10 features you are looking for in your final product, but still user can interact with it and give you feedbacks. Next is base for gaining options. How can you know what we want until we see what the options are? So if you are going to users for a market research and saying that we are going to build an app through which you can just trial the dresses you are going to buy from the online, they will not give you feedback, because they are users. They are not technological people. They cannot understand what you are saying. So if you are showing them at a single screen or a prototype or something like that, they can give you feedback. So this button should be there, this color should be changed or something like that. So you can get feedbacks from the target audience. Should be interactive. So prototype should be interactive. It's not a mere static thing with a thermocol, right? It has to have some interactive features. Like even if you are building with a cardboard model, you have to have multiple screens. So if somebody is clicking on a particular button, you can pop up the second paper model or something like that, so that they can have the feel of interaction, right? And last one is chief failure. So if you see that market is not looking for what you have built, so you have wasted less amount of money rather than building a product, right? So that's why prototype is very much needed for product development through design thinking procedure. Next is test. So test is design thinking. Prototype presentation. Don't defend your prototypes. If you don't understand your prototype, because something goes wrong. So what happens with engineers like us? So I was very much arrogant in the initial phase, that what a non-technical client will understand my product. I have built a robot. They don't know how to build a simple sensor. So how that they comment on my product? But that's not true, because you have to understand For whom you are building the robot, for whom you are building the website, for the users. Now if you are the best scientist in this world and build the best robot in this world, but your users couldn't understand how to use it, it's not the best robot, it's not the best product, because you are not going to use it. However, how many features are there, how effective it is, it doesn't count until unless people can really use it, right? So never ever defend your prototype. If your user is giving you genuine feedback that this is wrong, and if from your perspective as a technical people, engineer, that it is not wrong, still give a second thought that how I can come to a win-win situation which seems to be technically perfect as well as the user can use it. Otherwise your product is not going to stay in the market for longer period of time. So this is a diagram of design thinking plus lean startup methodology plus agile diagram. So from the initial point, from this flag, the design thinking is starting, empathize, define, ideate. So after ideate, when we are having the prototype, this prototype go through a circular path that is called learn, build, measure steps. So at that is the lean startup methodology. So when we build the prototype, we have to launch the beta version in the market, and people will use it, give you feedbacks. You will feed forward that to the prototyping team, and they will add those features. And this iteration will keep going, keep going, keep going until and unless you are coming with such a point where you are not getting any negative feedbacks or very less negative feedbacks. And after you have done this iteration and come up with the final product, then the execution step will happen. That is the agile diagram, where you will mass produce the things, ship to the market, it will be sold, accountings, and all those kind of boring stuff will be there, right? So entrepreneurs love these first two steps, and the last one, they need to hire experienced people who love to do those things, repetitive things. I personally don't like those things, right? So I used to hire experienced people for double-aged people like me, from me, who are having several years of experience in the industry and who love to do that particular repetitive thing. I don't love to do it, right? And fine, what we need to design what we need to design think, communication is the key. Communicate with okay, so for design thinking, what are the personality traits you need to have, right? The first one is and communication. Communication is the most important thing in design thinking, because you have to communicate to the users, to be empathetic, to understand their pain. You have to communicate to the team, you have to communicate to the users to get the feedback. So every single step you have to communicate, you have to give information, get information through your words and ears, right? So it's very much important to have a great communication skill. And when I'm talking about communication skill, it's not about English, right? Communication skill is an art and English is the language, right? So communication, if even if you can speak only in Bengali, you can be a good communicator, right? And you have to target the Bengali audience, because if you are talking with the English audience with Bengali language, they cannot understand, right? So according to your availability of language, you can choose your target audience, but never think that if I don't know English, I am not a good communicator. It's a very vague thought. Communication is something different. It's an art and English is the language. Even if you don't know English, it doesn't count, right? You know Bengali, that is the hardest language and sweetest language in this world. But still, if you know Bengali, it's very, very child's play to learn English. If you just need to get out of the afraid circle of your own self, that I cannot do it, English is something difficult or something like that. You understand 39 letters, akar, okar, and all those kind of things, and it's very complex. The Bengali, Sanskrit, Hindi is very complex, where the English is coming up with only 26 letters, right? So if you try a little bit and follow certain processes, you can learn English in 1.5 months. I am telling you, I am from a Bengali medium. I used to get the less marks, like the pass marks only in English, still class 6. But after doing a challenge with one of my friend, from class 7 till my BTech, I got the highest marks in each and every exams, including the boards in English, right? The highest marks. Whoever got the highest marks, I got the highest marks, right? So it's about only the inner self, that you have to challenge yourself that you can do it, right? That's the only thing. I used to do a activity for understanding the communication part. That is not possible in online, so I am skipping that. So when we need to design thing, now onwards until you die. So you have to design think till your deathbed, right? If you are innovator, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are doing something that is innovative, right? That's the thing. That's enough. So I have bored you for 36 more minutes and I'm done right now. If you have any questions, you can ask. I hope you are enough bored to ask questions. I'm done. It's over.
If anybody has any questions, they can put their questions in the chat box. So I will probably answer to them. And till the time you guys are putting in your questions, I'd like to ask Sir a question. So,
Yeah,
sir,
sure.
recently you talked about like equating your failures with success and how we try to forget that 90% of the times we fail to remember the 10% of the times we succeed. So, did you face similar situations while designing and brainstorming for Think Again Labs? And how do you think
Absolutely.
we should?
See, whatever I speak, I don't speak from reading from book, right? So what I speak, I personally experience the stuff, and that's also design thinking. If I cannot empathize the problem that what you people are having, I cannot give you the solution. So I only speak about the things that I have faced or I have seen somebody facing it from very close point of view, right? And in this particular problem statement, what you are saying that I have faced by my own self. Failure is inherent part of your life. You have to understand it. Every single day, you say now that for correcting a proper mathematical problem, to learn a mathematics, how many times you have to come up with the wrong answer, then only you can come up with the right answer. So every time to reach the success point, we have to go through different failure milestones. So it's not like 90-10, it's not that much. So I have make it quantitative to let people understand. It can be 80-20, it can be 95-5, it different for different people, right? But failure needs to be there. So in initial days when I was in college, so if you have heard about my Joe stocks, you heard about a severe heartbreak I had. I went for cutting my veins and all those kind of stuff. So why? Because I tried to forget the failure I had in my relationship. That is the reason. It's not why people commit suicide after a breakup or certain things, because they are unable to forget. They're trying to forget the stuff, they are unable to forget it, so it's coming back again and again and hammering on their head, and they cannot take that pressure, that pain, right? That's why they're committing that stuff. But I am not supporting it. That's absolutely wrong and false. If we want to forget something, we can, but we don't need to. When I got a little bit matured, I understood that whatever I have become, my present girlfriend, my family, their support, and the person who just ditched me, all the person who left me, they have equal share, because they gave me the failure which helped me to withstand the failures I am having in entrepreneurship life. So it's not needed to forget the failures. You can keep those as a lessons in your life, and inspiration as well. So I'm telling you, so I put recently, a few months back before the lockdown, I put bigger hoardings in Bordwan, because we have opened a research and innovation center over there. And I put the hoardings in such a place, through that place all my ex-girlfriends, still my schools and all those people used to walk through that road. That's on a very populated place in Bordwan, right? So that's what kind of thing you can do with the failures. It's not about always taking revenge in a very bad way. You can take revenge in a positive way as well. So this is the way I handle my failures right now. But there was a time, that's why I used to do all the bad things that I spoke in Joe stocks and all those kind of places, right? So I learned things by doing the mistakes, right? But I didn't repeated it. That's the thing.
Thank you, sir. That was a very interesting story. So we have another question from Vivek Jha, who says that what is the way to start design thinking like the first step?
uh, Design is the first step of design thinking, right? So the thing is, you have to not design is the second step. The first step is you have to understand. So what happens, people start building products. That's very bad. If you want to startup, don't start building products. Start finding a problem first. That is getting So the way of starting a startup or design thinking or anything like that, so you have to find a problem first that is faced by millions of people. Because if it's not faced by millions of people, you can come up with a solution, but it's not a product or a good business model, because you cannot sell it to 1,000 people or something like that. So you have to first figure out a problem, maybe a problem. So if you don't want to become an entrepreneur or sell it to the market, just try to do the design thinking. Take any problem from your home, from your mother's life, from your father's life, from your grandparents life, from your boyfriend's life, girlfriend's life, whom you really care, because it's very easy to be empathetic with the persons we love, right? So take problem from their life and try to solve that problem with your acquired knowledge through this design thinking principle. That's how you can start with, because it's you need to be very much matured to be empathetic with unknown people. So you have to start being empathetic with your loved one first, solve their 1 2 3 problems with design thinking. Then it's a habit which will grow to you, and you will look for problems and try to solve it. That happens with me right now, that I look for problems everywhere and try to solve it. It's a time game. You have to practice this again and again, and start with your loved ones. It will be easier for empathy. So if you develop the empathy, rest of the thing will happen automatically.
Right. So we got another question that says, "What do you think about neuromarketing future?"
uh, the future is neuromarketing, but see, uh, if you cannot control the climate change, plant a tree. As simple as that, right? Being a small entity, you cannot change the whole climate change. Like being a small human being, you cannot stop neuromarketing, because we have shown the marketers that our brain is a playground. You can come and play in our brain. We have shown it by using social media in a severe level, wasting our time over there, wasting our time in Netflix, Google, and all those places, right? So we have shown them what is our weak point. Now we have to show them our strong point, that okay, you are playing with your brain, but play in a little manner. We are now know how to critical think stuffs, how to come up with the conclusion from checking the facts, and you cannot control our brain without our need. So by controlling, by doing neuromarketing, they will show you certain things that is lucrative. Like if you are talking about, or if you are searching about a good dress for Diwali, all the dress companies will come up on your mobile phone, right? Just try unfollow them, right? That I do. That if I see that somebody is trying to play with my brain, I just play with them. So even if I need a dress, I just go and unfollow them, and so right now I am controlling them. Their algorithm is saying that my kind of people don't like that dress, but I like that. I will go to their platform and buy if I need it. But I show them that I don't like it. So I am also playing with their algorithms. So it's up to you whether you will let their algorithm play with you, or you are going to play with their algorithms, right? But the neuromarketing is going to stay in the market for longer period of time, because it's the most effective way of marketing. What is marketing? Convincing you to buy their things, right? Now, if they can control it through your brain waves, through your thinking power, it's the most efficient way, and we have shown that weak point.
Right, sir. So if anybody has any other questions, they can put it in the chat box.
Sir, I have an idea which I am going to implement, but I found that some other companies have that idea, same idea, but not the same, but some of that. So do you have to implement, because they are not so much popular in nowadays,
Great
but
question.
they
Great
have.
question for entrepreneurship. So how many shops are there in the market?
More than 10 companies.
More than 40 companies, right? Still new soaps are coming, right? So it's not about always creating something out of the world. You have to ask one question, that what you are trying to do, what you are trying to solve. So you are trying to build a product. Don't build a product. Try to come up with a solution. Now you have to think that whether the problem you are trying to solve is somebody else is solving in better way than you, then don't do it, because already somebody is doing it. So and we entrepreneurs always need to think of problem solving. You or somebody else is doing it doesn't count, right? So if somebody else is solving the problem in better way than you don't need to do it. If not, then you have to do it, because they are solving the problem but you know the better way. Simple answer. You have to ask these questions. Or if you see that yes, somebody else is doing in a better way, you can join their team. So we have to get out of this stereotype mindset of being CEOs, that I will own my own company, I will become the CEO. So these are very stereotype things. If everybody will become CEO, India can never become Silicon Valley, because what will happen? The best people open their own companies and there will be no people to join them, right? So if you feel that somebody else is doing better than you, join them and use your expertise to expand them, right? So it's not about always open a company. You have to always think that I have to solve the problem. If somebody else is solving the problem, there is no issues, I can join them. Or if you think that you can solve it in a better way, open up your own company. It's never like this somebody is already doing whether I can do it or not. You can make my there were several companies who was having platforms to book tickets, hotels and all those stuff before Make My Trip, right? But Make My Trip come into the market and do the things you have seen what they have done right now, right? So it's not about whether there is a, and having competitor is good, right? If you say to a pitch of a presentation of your elevator pitch of a startup that I don't have any competitor in the market, everybody will ask you to just get out. Why? Because if you don't have a competitor in the market, maybe they're not same, but if you don't have a competitor in the market, then your product don't have a market, because there are several intelligent people than us who are always doing market research. And if they are not solving a problem, then that problem don't worth to be solved. Maybe it happened that they are solving 2-3 part of a problem and you want to create the whole problem, that is different thing. But you have to come up with a list of market research, your competitors, that we are better than these people and they are working on our domain. That's called market validation. That market is validated, people are accepting the solution. Otherwise, investor is not willing to invest on your product because it's a gimmick. Maybe people will not accept your solution. What will happen with their money?
Right. So I would also like to let everybody know that the attendance link is given in the chat box. Please go to this link and give your attendance. If anybody else has any other question, they can unmute or.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sir, in competition, we have seen that big giants like Facebook, say Amazon, has actually bought out their smaller competitors. Like, say, Facebook developed their stories in the stories there in their feed to take out Snapchat, and Snapchat actually declined. So, how do you counter these big giants when you are a similar playing field?
See, same answer. Did LinkedIn bought by Facebook?
No, sir,
No,
it was
sir.
bought by Microsoft.
Did Twitter bought by Facebook?
No, sir. Independent.
How they sustained? Because they have something that Facebook, LinkedIn couldn't copy. They are doing the same thing. They are also social network. Facebook is also social network, but their target audience, their methodology, their whole idea is a unique one. Same problem statement, unique solution. And they sustain because they have worked through the lean startup methodology. So if you are getting a funding and using those fundings to buy your own car, your house, getting a bigger office and all those kind of stuff, later on when you will exhaust with the money and you will have liabilities, you have to sell your company to someone else, right? But if you can smartly think and go with lean startup, lean means thin, right? So lean means only the absolutely optimum thing. So you will buy only X amount of computers that is needed, not Y amount of computers, right? X plus 3 computers or something like that. You are not going to buy Apple if you don't need it. You are not going to buy a car if you don't need it. So if you are increasing your liability after getting funding, then you have to sell your company someday. Because there is a very great saying of Warren Buffett that if you are buying something when you don't need it, you have to sell something when you need it, right? Later on. So it's about the founders, it's about the company's value. Many people create company to sell company, right? That I will make this thing, but I cannot. Suppose somebody like WhatsApp. So do you think if Facebook don't take WhatsApp over, WhatsApp will grow like this? Never, because Facebook has those capabilities, those supply chains, those networks to grow it. Now the founder of WhatsApp thought that I have built it, I am getting well money out of this deal, and they can grow my product. They're not sabotaging my product. So what's not? You know who is the founder of WhatsApp, right? And the company is growing. So don't think that there. So company, you have to understand one thing. It's very difficult to understand from this perspective right now because you are in a college and trying to start a startup. So startup is, there is no owner of startup. कंपनी का कोई ओनर नहीं होता, कंपनी का ओनली फाउंडर होता है. You cannot say that Bill Gates own Microsoft. No, Bill Gates is the founder of Microsoft, and founder never change. If you are opening a company, you will be the founder for the lifelong. Maybe some other company is buying your company, because company is itself an entity. It's a living being. It sounds vague, but it's a living thing. When you start a company and you will be empathetic with the company, you can understand that it's a living thing. Even we have, like we have PAN card for human beings, we have PAN card for a company, right? So company has its own rules, own way of going. Now if you feel, or the board of director feels, that you are not the perfect person at this moment of time to grow the company, they can throw you out even if you are the founder. So you have to get prepared for this thing, and you have to go with that fire in your back every day, that if I am not performing good, somebody else will buy my company. Because company is itself an entity. If you cannot grow the company, those people who are investing on your company, they will buy it out, or they will sell to someone else, because they have put money on this thing and they will become your board of directors, right? So if you can be in the same pond with different sheep, then other sheep cannot just buy you out, right? Like Twitter didn't bought by anybody, right? Because they are still maintaining their uniqueness, they are still maintaining their authenticity and all those kind of stuff. They got offers, they rejected because they don't need that money, because they are going with lean startup methodology. But if they have urge of more money, one day they will be just get bought by someone else, like Flipkart get bought by someone else, right? And that is the future of startup, right? If you don't have the capability to grow something out of a certain amount of time or period or growth, then you should give it to someone else who can grow it. Like you are right now reading in a college, right? Why you are not reading at your home with your father? Because your father has understood that I cannot give the enough knowledge to my son to become an engineer, so I need to send my son to a college. They can make my son bigger than I can do it. So when you are forming a company, that is your child. Now if you can feel that I am being a father, cannot afford to grow this child bigger than what I have done so far, I have to give it to someone else. That is the logic behind selling a company. I hope I have not done so far. You have understood what I'm trying to say.
So any more questions? I think your voice is not audible. You can put it in the chat box. Your voice is not audible at all. Vivek, do you have a question? Are you putting it in the chat box?
I just agreeing with sir about those.
So do we have any more questions? I think none. Okay.
Hopefully.
So thank you, sir. This was a wonderful session, and I hope everyone present over here had a great deal of understanding and learning through this session. So that's all from me.
Absolutely. I also learned several stuff from you guys. Thank you so much.
And
And
sir, also we would like to
you,
invite in our upcoming sessions and have some great stuffs with you.
absolutely, absolutely, I'm always available.
Okay, thank you, sir, for giving us an insightful session on design thinking and critical thinking. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.